What's going on, everybody? Toby1 Shinobi here, and today I'm going to teach you how to win every single game in Chapter 5 of Fortnite. Well, maybe not every game, but your win rate is going to increase dramatically if you follow the steps in this video. This is kind of a formulaic video. I'm going to try to lay out a nice formula for winning games, and if you carry the right items and you rotate the right way and you set up in the right positions, you are going to win more games. So let's get into it. All right, to start off, let's talk about the general loadout meta, the best stuff to carry, basically. First of all, I like to carry 3 guns this season: a sniper rifle, a shotgun, and an assault rifle. The sniper rifle that I carry has quick scoping capabilities, preferably with lower zoom so that you don't have a glint on your sniper when you fight people. And I have a sniper build video that you can watch after this if you'd like, which shows you how to set that sniper up. Next up, I like to carry an auto shotgun with pretty much any mods. I will also carry a pump shotgun if it's good rarity. So usually I care more about the rarity of the shotgun than the type of shotgun. Both shotguns are pretty good, but the pump shotgun this season has a really slow fire rate, meaning that you pretty much have to pump swap, which means shooting your shotgun, swapping to your assault rifle and shooting, and then swapping back to your pump shotgun and shooting again. That way you can fill that time in between shots with actual damage. And I will say that the striker assault rifle pairs very well with the pump, using that as an SMG, as long as you build that assault rifle the way I show you in my assault rifle build video, and I will show you the whole setup for that assault rifle. So go ahead and check out that video if you like. But those are my 3 guns: sniper, shotgun, assault rifle. And the sniper is really good this season, so I'm pretty much never dropping it. It's too much of an advantage to get a nice opening tag on someone or just an end of fight in one shot, and they're crazy accurate. You can get 5 rounds in the magazine. It's just absurd how powerful they are. So I'm really not dropping my sniper, and I am setting it up to be as deadly as possible. Next up, I always carry shockwaves or a grappler, so some sort of mobility, and I really prefer to carry shockwaves in this season. I do not like the grappler at all, or the grapple blade, I think it's called. I just don't like it. I feel like it's clunky. It's hard to continue your momentum after you land. Sometimes it just stops you. It just feels a little too random to me, so I much prefer to carry shockwaves. But if there's only 2 shockwaves and then there's a grapple blade, I will usually take the grapple blade because, you know, it has infinite uses. But if there's 4 shockwaves or more, I'm always picking up those shockwaves and I'm leaving the grappler behind. Shockwaves are just incredibly versatile. I would argue that they're pretty much the best mobility that Fortnite's ever had. They can be used offensively. They can be used to get away really quickly and get a large distance from people very fast. They're just a really good mobility item. And if you don't know how to use shockwaves, check out my shockwave mastery video. And then the last slot in our inventory is porta bunkers, bushes, or med kits. Pretty much any of those 3 items. Porta bunkers are great. Stack as many as you can. I think you can stack up to 4. So carry 4 if you can, especially in the end game. Bushes are great as well. You can carry 4 of those. As a mouse and keyboard player myself, I really like bushes, but I know that a lot of controller players don't really like bushes because, you know, aim assist. But apart from that, porta bunkers are always really good, whether you're a mouse and keyboard or a controller player. Porta bunkers are very powerful, and you can stack up to 4 of them. Really good for end game, just you know, setting up in spots that are awkward. So I always recommend carrying porta bunkers if you can. And the last is med kits. Med kits are really good this season because the storm moves so fast. A lot of times you can get stuck in the storm for a long time, take a good amount of storm damage. So med kits are really good. And we also have medallions in the game that heal you over time for your shields, but there's no way to heal green health with those, so the med kits do that for you. I'm always stacking up med kits if I'm in the mid game and I'm behind in the storm, right? If I'm stuck in the storm, I'm gonna start stacking those med kits because I'm probably gonna be stuck in the storm for a while, and I also want to get out of storm safely and not just go direct route out of storm right into a bunch of enemies, right? So I kind of want to take a roundabout, take my time. Therefore, I'm gonna need some good green heals, which is med kits. You can carry 3 med kits, and you can also purchase med kits at the vending machines throughout all the POIs and at gas stations. So if you're in the storm and you see a gas station or a big POI, go ahead and go in there and then look on your map for the vending machine icon, run over to it, and you can also actually buy instant heals from the vending machine, so you can just instantly get your green health up, and then you can also buy med kits with gold. All right, now let's talk about medallions. This is the next part of your loadout. It's really good to have a medallion in your inventory. They don't take up a slot, but they heal you over time. So if you have 1 medallion, you heal for 3 health per tick. If you have 2 medallions, you heal for 4 health per tick. If you have 3 medallions, you heal for 5 health per tick. If you have 4 medallions, you heal for 6 health per tick. And if you have 5 medallions, you heal for 8 health per tick. So you get a nice little bump for having all 5, which I've had actually quite a few times, and it's pretty crazy. Someone shoots you and just like 5 or 6 seconds later, you're full shields again. It's pretty wild having 5 medallions. It's hard to be taken down unless somebody really closes the gap on you or you damage yourself with fall damage or something like that. So just having any medallions at all is really helpful because it's basically like having like a constant slurp juice, this thing that's just constantly healing you, shielding you up. In Zero Build, it's almost like you have an overshield for 150, right? You normally have your 50 overshield, but if you have a medallion, now you have basically 150 overshield. It just slowly ticks back up. So if you can get space from enemies and kind of run around, buy yourself some time, you shield over time with medallions, and they're really, really powerful. All right, now let's talk about drop spots and rotations through the map, or basically moving around the map. So the Storm this season is incredibly fast. I think they should nerf it a little bit more. They did nerf it a tiny bit, but I think they need to nerf it a little bit more because newer players are probably dying in the Storm left and right? The Storm is moving fast. So therefore, I generally like to drop in the center of the map, somewhere central in the map, so that I don't have to spend a lot of time running from the Storm, and I can have more fun just like eliminating players and kind of going for objectives and that sort of thing without having to stress about the Storm. I'm usually dropping in areas around fencing fields, not right into fencing fields because it's a little too hot, but usually around fencing fields. I get looted up and then I roll into there to grab the medallion from the player who's eliminated the boss, and then I go ahead and upgrade my weapons at the vault in fencing fields. I have a drop spot video out, so go ahead and check that out for some of my favorite spots. Now, if you're gonna drop near the edge of the map, that's totally fine as long as you have a vehicle or a jump pad that will get you to a vehicle. So go ahead and check out Fortnite.gg for vehicle locations and jump pad locations, because that's really important to know. You gotta choose your drop spots wisely because you don't want to get stuck out in the mountains and not have any vehicles around. Even if you have a jump pad in the mountains, right? You need to be able to get to a vehicle from that jump pad, because you might get so far with a jump pad, but by the time you land, you're gonna still be in the Storm because it moves so quick, and then you're gonna kind of be just running from storms. So make sure you have vehicles wherever you land, that you can get to vehicles, because they're incredibly helpful at the early stages of the game when the Storm is moving so quick. All right, now let's talk about the most optimal route and rotations for winning games. And this is optimal, right? This isn't for high kills. This is purely to win games. If you just want to win games, I'm going to try to teach you the formula right now. The basic formula is getting a forecast tower, a medallion, modifying your weapons so that they're very deadly, and then getting to the best spot in zone early and being ready to set up with good equipment. Having lots of good equipment. All right, let's start with forecast towers. Forecast towers are back in the game, and they're available 30 seconds into Storm Phase 2. So once you see Storm Phase 2, you see 30 seconds pass, and now the forecast towers come up. Or when it says Storm Phase 2, 1 minute remaining. Forecast towers are so powerful because they allow you to see the next zone, the next safe zone in the map, which is just crazy, especially towards the end of the game. You can get to zone before anyone else, and then they're pushing towards you with a Storm at their back, and you're just like casually shooting at them and just figuring out your next moves instead of stressing about the Storm. Because the Storm pulls so far and so fast this season, it's really, really helpful to have these forecast towers. So check your map early in the game during Storm Circle 2 with 1 minute remaining, and look for when they come in and try to beat all the players to it. Once you get to a forecast tower, you basically need to eliminate the guards, which are usually roaming within about 100 yards of the spot. They're usually kind of far from the forecast tower, but yeah, eliminate the 3 guards or just 1 guard that carries the key. Just eliminate them all just so they're not annoying you. Bring it back up to the forecast tower, put it in the machine, and now you are able to see the next zone at all times during the game. All right, now after you get the forecast tower, you're gonna start looking for medallions. You're looking for medallion players or medallions that are still available at POIs. If the medallions are still available at this time, then it usually means that there's no players in those POIs, and is generally safe. Or people could be rolling at the same time, but yeah, generally safe to get medallions from POIs if you see them. Otherwise, you are looking for golden circles on your map, big old rings, and that signifies that medallion players are somewhere in that gold circle. So start heading towards those medallion players, because you definitely want a medallion in this game. Okay, and then once you get a medallion, then you want to go to a vault at one of the major POIs that has a medallion. These vaults allow you to customize your weapons. There's a workbench inside that vault, and you want to customize them in a way that fits your playstyle, but also do it in a way that is, effective, so that these weapons are really deadly, right? So you can watch my weapon build videos videos again to show you how to set up these weapons. So by now you should have a forecast tower, a medallion, and weapons that are really, really powerful. And if you don't have a medallion, then you're still looking for those medallion players on the map. If you see a circle, a gold circle that is smaller than the others, then that means that that player has 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 medallions. The smaller the gold circle on the map, the more medallions the player has. And know that if the player has a small circle on the map, then that means they carry a lot of medallions, and you need to finish that fight quick. You can't have a lot of space in between you guys and let them continue to shield up, because it's just going to make it too hard of a fight for yourself. So you kind of need to sneak up on them, get the drop on them, and then finish the fight quick so they can't heal over time as they're running around. Okay, so now that you got the forecast tower, the medallions, and modded weapons, you are now just playing for zone. You're just looking at your map, you're figuring out your rotation to get to zone, to the best spot in zone, and then get to the next zone after that, right? We're focused 100% on positioning and zone if we really want to win at this phase. And that means that we need to find a vehicle in order to get to zone. Vehicles are really important here because they allow you to move across the map quickly. As we said before, the storm moves really fast this season. They're very good mobile cover, so if you're driving through zone, you start to get shot, they're going to tank a lot of damage for you, and they allow you to cover steep terrain very quick rather than using all your grapples or your shockwaves. Fortunately, there are a ton of vehicles all around the map that can be found at pretty much every major POI and every gas station. And if you're currently driving a vehicle and you see another fresh vehicle, go ahead and swap vehicles, because the gas tank on the vehicles this season is pretty small and you run out of fuel quick. So it's always worth just swapping out your car so that you have gas. A lot of times I'll just get right to the edge of zone in the end game and run out of gas, which is a big problem because you want to be able to drive to the safest, best spot in the end zone and secure that spot. You don't want to be caught at the beginning of the zone where all the other players are piling into and you just end up in this kind of mess between all these other players, and especially if you're rotating in late. And I'll repeat it again, if you're going to stop at a gas station and you're in the storm, go ahead and look for a vending machine to purchase some health, and then also purchase med kits, because if you're in the storm and you've been in the storm for a while, or you think you're going to be in the storm for a while, you might consider dropping your sniper and just running a shotgun and assault rifle at that point so that you can keep your utility items if you're showing up late, because you're going to need to rotate into that good spot using mobility, and then you might want to throw down a porta bunker or bushes, and then you're also going to need that health so that when you get to the edge of zone you can heal up and then enter the end game fight. So as painful as it is to drop a sniper rifle, you might consider doing it if you're down bad on health. Now there's also other ways to move around the map, namely with jump pads. Jump pads are usually found on the edges of the map near the coast, at POIs, or like kind of randomly along beaches, and they're also found near lakes, at the edge of the lake, usually in the back of a motorboat or on a dock. So you can always use those to rotate if you're near a lake or near the edge of the map. You can check out Fortnite.gg to see all the jump pad locations. Try to learn them, they're very helpful. Oh, and they're also commonly found on the very, very peaks of the highest mountaintops. So if you see a really, really high mountaintop, there's probably a jump pad on top of it, and you can use that to rotate as well. And jump pads are a lot safer this season because all the weapons are projectile, not hit scan. So it's actually a lot harder to hit enemies at range out of the sky because you have to lead your bullets perfectly. So jump pads are great this season. Relatively safe to use jump pads in the end game as long as the entire lobby isn't focusing you or you're not really, really hurt. All right, now let's talk about winning the end game. So the end games of Chapter 5 have a lot of variables a lot of the time because there's very unique terrain or very different terrain in every single biome, and these zones can kind of pull up everywhere. So a lot of these end games can be fairly unique between, you know, huge mountains or lakes or POIs, cities, buildings, you know. So yeah, there's some pretty interesting end games, and there's usually a good amount of variety to it, which I really like. But this is also why I really advocate carrying porta bunkers or bush bombs into the end zone, because you can set up in these positions if you get in a tight spot. You know, if there's a really good spot but there's no cover up there, go ahead, you can throw a bunker down and take that position, and now you have the best spot in the game with good cover. You can also throw one down if you're hurt, and if you have a medallion, you're going to re-shield automatically. You can pop a health kit. They're just really, really helpful in the end game because you can rarely be 100% sure that someone doesn't have an angle on you. Now, I will say you really want to conserve those bunkers and bush bombs in the end game. Try not to use them unless you absolutely need to. Also, don't use them if other players aren't aware of your presence, because throwing up a porta bunker lets everyone know, hey, I'm over here, be cautious when you push me, right? So if you can save those till you really need them, or until an opponent gets fairly close and then throw it down, you're like, okay, I've got the nice cover here or concealment, and now we have a big advantage in the fight. That's great to do. Now, I will say generally the most important things about these end game circles are two things. One, getting to the best position in zone and then knowing where the next zone is and having a plan of how to get there and how to set up safely. And number two, not putting yourself in a lot of risk and taking a lot of damage in the end game. The whole goal here is to be the last player standing, and you can't do that if you're dead. So the best way to do this is, one, to have forecasts, right? It's really helpful to have forecasts in these ending circles because you know exactly where that next zone is, and you can set yourself up in a position so that you can rotate to that next zone very easily, right? So you have a huge advantage at finding the most advantageous places in zone to rotate to the next zone, which makes it so that you don't have to run through a bunch of enemies to get to the next zone because you're already in a safe spot to rotate to the next zone. Now, as you enter one of the first end zone circles, right? Like, you know, maybe 10 to 15 players alive, if you're playing solos, or like 4 or 5 squads alive, right? The circle is fairly large. You generally want to rotate to dead side of zone, unless you have forecast and you know the optimal place is not dead side. Now, dead side of zone just means that it's the less populated side of zone. This is generally the area that is a coast area, or maybe like a lake, or a spot where the majority of players are not rotating into, because live side of zones are usually where the popular POIs are, and everyone's pushing from that kind of like general 180 to 270 degrees of the circle. Well, if you can get to the opposite of that, to the dead side where nobody's rotating from because it's ocean, then usually that's going to give you a nice advantage in surviving because nobody's going to be at your back and you can just focus on everyone in front of you. So that's my next point, is when you set up in the end zone, you want to clear your back and your sides first. I see a lot of players in the end games set up and they just start laser focusing on anyone they see, right? Well, there's still 8 players standing and you only know where 1 or 2 players are and you're shooting at them. What are you doing? You got to check your back and your sides. Make sure that you're safe before you take any shots. Knowledge is power in the end game. I would say that just knowing where all the players are will give you a massive advantage in the end game. So if you're in a solos game, right, and there's 5 players remaining, that means there are 4 enemies and yourself. If you can find all 4 of those enemies, maybe you see 2 gunshots going off over there, you saw a guy scurry off into a bush over there, and then you saw a guy over on the mountain over there. Great, now you know where all the enemies are. Therefore, you can play a little looser because you don't have to worry about your sides or your back, right? If you know where everyone is, it makes the end game so much easier. And once you know where the players are, now you can start deciding who to pressure, who do you want to push into that enemy, where do you want people to end up, right? You kind of have a more control than other people who don't know where other players are, right? So if you know where all the players are, now you can kind of think about, hey, I kind of want this path to be clear, so I'm going to move over here and I'm going to start pressuring this guy over here, so he has to run from me and then run into that team and then they're going to fight. So it opens up a lot more time for planning out strategy and tactics. So really try to nail down where everyone else is before you start getting too active in the end game. And I'll say it again, the end game is all about surviving, right? You don't want to get too active. You don't want to put yourself at risk, right? If there's 4 or 5 players left, you probably don't want to fight at all. You would much rather have those other 3 or 4 players fighting each other, right? If you can just stay stealth and you know where everyone's at, wonderful. If they don't know where you're at, even better, right? Just stay calm, just stay chill, watch everyone from afar. If you see an easy kill that somebody else really can't get, go ahead and take it, and now you're just accounting for 1 less player, right? As long as you're not putting yourself at too much risk and taking a lot of damage, then it's totally okay to take some shots, but just have a plan. If someone's going to push you, you kind of have to have a plan to know what to do if they do push you. Are you going to take the fight or are you going to reposition? And this is the next really important thing, is having equipment in the end game. You want to have a good amount of equipment. If we're looking at shockwaves, you know, we're at least having 2 shockwaves, hopefully 4 or more shockwaves. If we have bunkers, I hope we have 2 or more bunkers in the end game, and hopefully we have health kits. We might not need the health kits at this point if there's just a few players left, because you're generally not going to be able to get off a health kit in a close range fight in these small circles. So, you know, at the very end games, you can start to drop health kits and pick up more equipment, because that can often be more helpful, especially if you have a medallion that's going to heal you over time. Unless you have to rotate through storm and you know you're going to have to rotate through storm or you're going to take storm damage, then go ahead and carry a med kit. But yeah, it's really ideal to have your 2 or 3 gun loadout and then be carrying either bunkers, bushes, mobility. You got to have mobility for sure. Probably want defense items as well, and then it's always helpful to have health as well, like med kits. If you have all that stuff and you're in the end game with just like 4 or 5 players left, you are at a massive advantage, because now you can reposition, throw down some defense, heal up, reposition again if you need to, and repeat the process and just keep working until you find a nice advantageous position to really take a good fight. And then here's a critical rule about end game, do not be in the second to last fight if you can avoid it, right? So do not be the second to last fight, meaning don't get third partied by the third team or the third player left, right? So you and another player fight, and then the third one comes in and finishes you and they win, right? You don't want that to be you. You want that to be the opposite. So you always want to try to make the last two players or the last two teams fight each other. It is really, really important, right? Even with medallions and heals being pretty available in this game, it's still super, super dangerous to take the second to last fight, because that third player, that third team, just waiting to pounce in on the last fight and finish off both teams and be the victor. It's the easiest way to get the victory royale is to just third party, right? We all know that, so just try to avoid letting that happen to you. All right, if you follow all the tips that I just gave you, I'm really confident that your win rate is going to skyrocket or at least increase significantly. And if you want to help me out for that, go ahead and leave a like on the video. It really helps me. And even better, use code TobyWanShinobi in the Fortnite item shop. It helps me more than you will ever realize. And if you want more great Fortnite Zero Build videos, I have a huge library. Check out my must-watch Fortnite Zero Build videos, as well as my recent videos for the new chapter. Thank you so much for watching. Have yourself a great day. Shinobi out.